If you never experienced clinical depression, it's kind of hard to understand what is it actually like. Well-intended people will say things like, just think positive or snap out of it, though they may not say it out loud. Some people think a person with depression is just being lazy or just trying to get attention. However, major depressive disorder is a serious psychological condition that affects a lot of people. Before I became a therapist, I experienced depressive episode after my deployment from Iraq. The depression completely and utterly hijacked my thinking and the way that I was feeling. And I even seriously contemplated about suicide or the things that I could do to just end it. But a family member encouraged me to seek psychotherapy, and it really helped. It truly transformed myself, and it made me the person who I am today. This is what inspired me to become a therapist, and I eventually became an LPCA, working to get my LPC. Through my research and the things that I read and the things that I wrote and the speeches that I have given, one of my personal life mission is to validate people who are struggling with depression and walk with them on the path to recovery from feeling depressed. If you know someone who seems depressed, it can be very difficult to understand, and it can be very hard to know what to do. With more knowledge about how depression works, we can actually be in a better position to offer the most helpful support that actually works instead of discouragement or pushing them aside. So in terms of understanding clinical depression, we need to understand that depression is the second most common mental health issue beyond anxiety and affects almost all human beings on the planet who either suffer from it themselves or witness a friend or family member go through it. Everyone has ups and downs, but clinical depression is debilitating, affecting the ability to do even the most simple daily tasks. People who have never experienced it often don't realize how different it is from just feeling blue or being sad. You can't just cheer up in a matter of a second, or watch a funny movie and snap out of it, or feel better right away. It takes time. For clinical depression, you feel significantly sad for at least 2 weeks, and it's not easy. It can even go on for months or even for years. Your range of emotions become concentrated so fast, and you lose your ability to feel pleasure from the things and the activities you used to enjoy most of the time. And as that depression worsens throughout the time, you may even lose the ability to feel anything at all. Despite being exhausted, you may wake up at 3 a.m. and have trouble falling back asleep, and that's just the worst. Or you may sleep about 10, 16, 18 hours a day but still feel tired and exhausted. That's because depression interferes with your natural sleep cycle, and the thing that you go through, memory and concentration issue, also become increasingly noticeable. And of course, there are degrees of depression that we must keep in mind. In mild cases, you may still be able to function, but you will feel down much of the time and don't even get to enjoy much of your environment. Serious depression literally changes your brain and how it perceives in 3 ways, which psychiatrist Aaron Beck called cognitive triad. You develop a negative view of yourself. I am worthless, for example. A negative view of the world at times. No one cares about me. And a negative view of the future that might come in front of you. Things will never get worse. These thinking style matter. That's because individuals with a negative view of self believe they are tribal people. They often also feel strong guilt for their failures. So what can you do to help? Active depression is definitely something people need help moving through because they lose their motivation. Sad feeling, negative perception, exhaustion, and withdrawal from activity, downward spiral. The more depressed they feel, the less they want to be around people, and the less they want to do things that they used to do in the past or that used to be fun to them. The less they want to do anything, the more depressed they feel, which makes them even less likely to engage with life. Knowing how bad depression feels, people don't want to acknowledge that it could be happening. It is crucial to notice when depression is starting, so active steps can be taken to pull out of it before sliding down into a pit of despair. And here's some way you can offer support as a friend or a family member. The first thing is to encourage them to speak to a professional. People who suffer from chronic depression may not even realize that they don't have to feel that way. Since depression makes people think, things will never get better, they often don't bother to seek help. The best thing you can do is patiently but firmly encourage someone with depression to seek professional help. There are a wide variety of effective psychotherapy approach for the treatment of depression. Encourage the person to look for someone they feel connection with, so they will be motivated to stick with the treatment that they offer them. There are also a number of good medication options, so encourage the person to seek out a consultation with their primary care provider or even a psychiatrist. Their provider may also recommend light therapy, which can help awaken the brain if they suffer from more often from depression during the shorter days of winter. A medical checkup is also important. Sometimes help them get moving. Aside from medical aspect, the most important thing in the treatment of depression is behavioral activation, which basically means to get moving, both literally as in exercising or just getting out of the house, and metaphorically as in moving towards something in your life that you value, like family, career, spirituality. This can be challenging to do as nothing feels very important when you are depressed. Normally, if you don't feel like doing something, you choose not to do it. But in depression, you don't feel like doing much of anything. You have to decide to do it anyway. And know that you may not feel any better after doing it. It can take a while for that feeling to catch up. Offer validation and encouragement. As noted earlier, people with depression tend to think very negatively. It can be frustrating to figure out how to respond to those negative thoughts. But the most important thing is to avoid the temptation to argue with them. If you are trying to tell them just to cheer up or think positive or see the bright side, their brain will likely only fire back with more negative thoughts. The best thing to do is acknowledge the thoughts and remain encouraging. Here's just an example. I don't want to see a doctor. It won't do me any good. You can reply, I know your brain is telling you it won't do you any good, but things are not getting better. You have to do something different since what you are doing is not helping you. Seek out help. They may give you an option. They might say, I'm just worthless. In that you can reply, I know that's how you feel right now, but that's the depression talking. I love you and I'm here for you, and I will support you as much as I can. Of course, thoughts of suicide are the hardest to hear from someone you care about. It may be helpful to say something like this. When you are depressed, you feel terrible about yourself. You think the world is an awful place. It feels like things will never get better. To your mind, things probably seems pretty helpless and hopeless. I'll bet the thought of not feeling anything probably feels pretty attractive to your brain right now. However, the real problem is that you are depressed. Depression is just hijacking your thinking. People who are depressed tell themselves they are no good and they feel like things will never get better. If you can just hang in there a little while and postpone the permanent solution of escape through suicide, there are proven treatment for depression, and I'll help you find someone to talk to. Of course, you should seek professional help if someone is seriously suicidal, and you may even need to take them to an emergency room. If you're not sure of what to do, there are free services you could call, like National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 or suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Numerous studies have shown that social support help prevent and moderate the effects of depression, since a big problem with depression is getting lost in the negative thoughts in your mind. Being around others helps to refocus the mind on a more important thing that matters right here and right now, and you can remind the person that they are so much more than their depression. Lastly, be sure to take care of yourself. People with depression can be very challenging to be around, even for the most loving and well-intentioned person. Since these disorders hijack people's thinking pattern, their ongoing negativity and pessimism can be hard to deal with. Progress can also be very slow for someone with depression. Even with professional help, it may take a week or month to show improvement. improvement, so great patience is required. Make sure you remind yourself of the things you are grateful for in your life. Seek out your own support from family members and friends. Engage in fulfilling hobbies. Make sure you get enough rest. You can provide support, but clinical depression is a serious disorder that requires professional help. It can be very difficult to see someone you love suffer, but if you don't take care of yourself, you may begin to get overwhelmed yourself, which will not help anyway. So take care of yourself, and I wish you all the best.